Hello, and welcome back to the Campfire Stories. I know it's been a long time, but this time we're going to do something a little different. Normally, I have one guest, and we talk for about 15 minutes. This time it's going to be more like a bit of a podcast, similar to the discussions, where I actually talk to a couple of my players in some of my games about some of the games that they've been in for the Anime Tales. So obviously, we usually do the Power Podcasts, with these two. So we've got Alex and Sam with me today.
Hello. We're both
Hey-ho.
we're both in a dual cactus right now. I think that's what's going on here. We're both each pronged in this cactus. We're in a horrible plant-based hell
I feel
at
like
this moment.
I feel like Sam. Yeah, I feel like you and Sam are just like, yeah, you're just the one cactus with the two voices.
Release us from this prison.
Oh, cactus.
Just like multiple personality disorder inside this cactus.
The
No.
cactus didn't have enough problems.
We've kind of already like sort of roughly confirmed that, since that like it literally like every single episode it's got a different voice. But yes, the multi-voiced cactus. Either that or I am just going insane and I'm hearing all of your voices. You watch. I'll play this back, and it'll just be me talking to myself. Like, I won't have recorded any of your audio whatsoever, and it will just be like really.
Yeah, I mean, just like Candle Cove, you just look at the static of the television and go, "Oh, this is the best show I've ever watched."
Either that or
Good
it's
night,
similar to-
Lockdown
everybody.
can do that to you.
It's similar to Castaway, where I'm just screaming at this cactus. Well, San. So anyway, yes. So let's get on to the topic of games. So obviously we talk
Depression
about
ever.
Animite Tales all the time, but we actually don't talk about. Well, we reference a lot of them, but we don't actually talk about the previous ones that we've done. So obviously, most people who actually watch this channel, you've seen us do the dev plays, and the two different campaigns that we've done with the dev plays have been the villains campaign, which is currently the one that we've got right now. It's probably the most hype moment that it's ever had, where a skeleton fights like just some crazy guy with chemical manipulation. Alchemist, there we go. I was trying to think of like the name for it. And then we had everyone attacks a museum on the episode before then. But we also have the other campaign that we did a while back, which was the Dev Plays Again, which was the I think it's still on the channel, the Animite Fables, where we actually took the Animite Tales system and we actually dressed everyone up in the guises of D&D classes, races, and we stated that their superpowers in lore was considered as magic. Just to sort of show like all of the different possibilities of it, and then we went on to villains, where we actually show you the real formula of how the game is actually played. The place that they're in is known as Iris City, in the continent of Oculus, which is actually going to be a place that is going to be in the module books. However, to make sure that there was as little spoilers for the main story as possible, it was set in a couple years after that, and it actually has like no past impact from it. It's basically as if the Super Society storyline doesn't even begin, and therefore nothing really changes. So there's no story spoilers whatsoever, because it's almost like as if it's its own canon, its own timeline, but it's still set in that the same place, so that you might recognise some characters if and when the game comes out and you're actually able to play through it. That being said, there have been other campaigns that we've done before that we don't stream. And I thought that we'd actually talk about some of them today.
Oh yeah.
So we've done quite a few. For instance, we've done a couple of ones. No, we did a Skyrim style, a Dark Souls style campaign set in both in those universes. We did a sort of like seafaring one, which lasted a couple of arcs. And then we actually did a pirate version of the seafaring one, where you actually made evil characters. We're currently still doing one set in a war where between like superhumans and humans, and so on and so forth. And you've even done one where you are actually set in a world that knows of the multiverse, and they travel around through it. You've also done a couple of one shots, and also you've done a 20. Well, we attempted to do a 24-hour campaign.
We also did one. Well, we also did one where there was the zombie apocalypse as well. Like,
Yes,
there's a short one, but that was a good one as well. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I do remember that when we were trying like our own version of the quirk system.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, that was fun and like ridiculous. You think that the dev plays the villain campaign is chaotic? Oh boy, that was insane.
Yeah, it's really one of those strange things where a lot of people, when they join a campaign, a lot of the time that everyone is either starting at the same level, or you're just thrown into the game whilst everyone is currently still playing. Whereas most of our campaigns, you start, and then if people leave, we don't often have people join back in. Or well, we do have people join back in, but if you leave, you don't have like new players suddenly turn up halfway through. But we did have one where we actually did have that, which was the first one that you were ever in. That wasn't a main module playthrough, Alex. It was when you were playing alongside Bill, Kane, and I believe it was Graham. The four of you
Oh, yeah.
started doing the 8Cs, and you went to an island called Chibo. And later on, like halfway through, if not like nearing the end, Siobhan joined, my partner, and also Alfie joined.
Yeah, as the Incredible Legion. Actually, I keep forgetting about like the Chiba one, but it was like an integral arc for like quite a lot of our characters. We got to meet Siobhan's character Cosmos for the first time, and thus
Yes.
began, the tree siblings, the saplings.
Oh yes.
Yeah, yeah, but relationship between Aspen and Cosmos, just sort of this weird sibling rivalry, kind of childish, but this sort of like this instant pair bond that came from escaping a tree that was keeping both of us captive. But it was like, actually, yeah, that was a mad one looking back on it, because I had no idea at the time, but it's like one of us had to make the rolls and stuff, but both of us could have died then and there if we took like the staff of Danu, which is this powerful, god item that enhances your powers. But it's like, yeah, Siobhan managed to get the rolls. I did not. I and Aspen were under the impression all this time that it was a close one, and that we both were on an equal footing. Oh no, we weren't. It's like Cosmos barely got it as well, but she was the superior super powered anomaly in that case, and Aspen was still quite baby in their powers, which I thought was just a nice twist. But yeah, everything in there is just kind of like, yeah, it's just you got the island that's full of these, animals that want to kill you. Yeah,
That was quite interesting.
yeah.
I'd say though, like the weirdest part about that was obviously, like as you said, like the weird animals that are always kind of trying to kill you. We've had a lot of really weird ones. Like obviously we've had like in the superhero world, we've had magical world, but we've also had like both in between where it's sort of like mystical. And like the strangest one that we've actually shown in that sort of in between that was one that we did where it was following only just Legion, and then you guys obviously built characters around that. Sam, you built Presto, as well as another character. I cannot remember his name. Arlo? No?
Oh yeah, it was the Lex Luthor ripoff.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, but
For,
yeah, I liked him, but
I
yeah.
forgot. Only thing I can remember about him was he made something called Synmite, which was synthetic animal. That was the only thing I can remember about him. Besides, he had a really cool suit.
Yeah, he was
That
basically
was.
Lex Luthor with a power
Oh, he
suit.
was.
Actually, what I liked about it, that's the thing, he never really got his big sort of great moment. He's like basically I like to think he's vacationing in the Bahamas somewhere, after he left. It's like, nah, this is ridiculous. I don't have to do this. I'm rich. And he just
I
goes
mean,
off
yeah.
somewhere. I mean, he's
I
like
think.
one of his like set of perks was economics. Like I just find that's such a Sam invention, by the way, because you gave all of these perks that you had to your trade, which is economics, and like you bought like stocks and shares that would earn money back for you, and like corporate espionage and things like that, so to like influence businesses, which is like
Yeah.
it's not really relevant to combat, but like for background stuff that was just very interesting and useful. And I wish we could have like I don't know. I love perks like that. It's just very sort of esoteric sort of perks that may not be, useful in the short term, but in the long term they pay off.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. I think I only actually rolled for it once whenever we did do the stocks because it was like a D20 roll plus that to see if the stocks went higher or lower, more or less if I gained money back or if I just gained nothing back. I think I did it, but I only gained like 5 or 10 stars.
Well,
In the
like the
grand scheme
real
of it,
stock market.
uh, yeah, wasn't good.
I just thought,
Needs to be
fair
fixed. Yeah, if I was going to do that, I'd have to probably go full Fable 2 on it and just make it so I can buy every building in the land.
What I liked about him as well is that he did have some good character moments in that, he joined the super, the equivalent of the super society, you know, uh, in this universe for status essentially, and to just gain, more stuff of information. And when my character died, who I worked really hard on to create as a race, but I just didn't really click with the character. I can't even remember his fucking name. Yeah, it was Zoot.
Zoot.
Yeah, Zoot the amoeba alien. Which I think, mechanically is way more interesting than, the actual character of Zoot. I think it was just like this being, this jelly amoeba that can only exist in, a zero oxygen atmosphere, just in space essentially, and, can travel around everything in this special mechanized suit that they have. And they have like uh increased intelligence and a kind of telepathic ability to like communicate with each other, as well as like talking normally through machines. And like this sort of willpower ability to just keep their suits in check and to operate them. And so there was this moment when Zoot died, and you wanted to find the secret of this alien technology, and you looked inside. And I think it's fact. I think we might have recorded this actually, but it was me just open mouth because I think Joe made up this backstory on the fly as to like how these suits are powered. And it turned out that Zoot, the actual being, was powering the suit, both with their sheer willpower, and also through their excretion, which was
Yeah, I remember
the poop Zoot
that.
suit. Yeah, and I was just sort of like, I did not consent to this canon. I mean, eventually I got like Liz pressed about it. It's like, yeah, you know what? I didn't give you an explanation for why Zoot could do this. So you know what? Yeah. So when like the suit was opened up, and you got to get a look at it, you couldn't find it. Arden was your character,
Oh,
Sam.
no, Arden, that's what it's
Arden,
Ludo,
called.
yeah.
Luro Arden.
Yes.
That's it. That's who it was.
As soon as you mentioned Arden, I remembered now because Laurel Arden is one of my many name characters, like names I use for characters every so often. I've had about 4 or 5 Laurel Ardens in my life.
Oh, why is that? Is there any particular reason for that, or just a cool name?
I remember it started because of Flash Gordon, because I remember I needed to make a character name, and I watched that, and I remember someone's like just name was like the name they're credited with was just Arden. Someone else was called Luro, and I thought those are weird names. That'll be a cool character name. Makes no sense, but it'd be nice.
Yeah.
That's
bit of
where I
Sam
get.
I think you've
Canon.
had quite a lot of very interestingly named characters now that I think about it, because you had Zinzarina, Ned Zed the Jester Mime, Luro
Ned Zed.
Dago.
I mean, if you want, I can tell you the reason behind all of those ones.
I'll tell you what. You can do that after I've remembered all of them. I know, like, cover is fine because like that his makes sense, but yeah. So you got Dago, and then you've also got another one, which was actually kind of strangely named. I can't remember which one it is. Although, like, again, I know the reason as to why you've named Macaria. That's it. Yeah, yeah.
Macaria is because Macaria is actually the name of daughter of Hades in Greek mythology, and she is the goddess of the good death, as in a happy death.
Yeah.
Like when you die, I think it was like mostly representative, like when you die in battle, or when you die doing something great, or when you die in your sleep, or something similar. Ned Zed, the Jester Mime, was because of the great. I call the guy from Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell, the great Bruce Campbell TV show, Briscoe County Jr., where one of his enemies was called Ned Zed.
Okay.
And that was just the fun name.
Just for the audience's sake, Macaria was Sam's character who was a priestess who used biology manipulation to heal people. So she would be the team's healer, whereas Ned Zed the Jester Mime had gloves where every time that he'd mime something, he would then basically make that mime reality, but it would still be like an invisible construct that would affect the physical world. Like, he pretends there's a wall in front of him, someone runs up to him, smacks their face against solid space that is just completely invisible to the naked eye because it is mimed.
Yeah, well, I mean, I ripped that straight from Shaolin Showdown, but they did have a character exactly like that.
Yes.
Which is where I just got him from, more or less.
See, I always thought it was like the Hair Bear bunch, where you just sort of pretend to be on a motorcycle and just like drive off on the invisible motorcycle.
Which he definitely did.
I did that with a horse. That with a horse, but I didn't do that with a motorcycle because I don't think motorcycles existed yet in that time
balloon
frame.
at one point, where you just like you pretended to blow up a balloon, and then you pretended like as if it was taking you away. You then pretended to make a sack out of thin air, and then just drapes it over the books and like click it together, and then you like blew the balloon up a little bit more, and then you carried off this this pile of books as you just floated away.
I love it.
But I was somewhat more creative with my powers. Yeah, those were good. Oh, and I remember the time the one time I can remember when Ned Zed the Jester Mime was the time he called like a Western style showdown with a knight, because the knight, like from what I remember, Ned Zed had a crush on the princess. The knight, I think, made fun of the princess in some respect.
Made fun of the royal family specifically. Yeah.
And I just took the glove off, smacked him with it, and set about a duel. And if I more or less did like hands near the hips, flexing, ready for it, and then one gunshot to the face. I know we've now had to edit it down a bit, but because of how powerful he was, he one shot the guy.
It's like it was funny because it was like instantly defeated, and I was like, oh, I'll have to roll to see if he takes an injury. It was like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't take an injury, but he is like straight up knocked out from this shot. Like, he's just shot, like gut shot, and it's like, done. That's it, gone. That was so cool.
Yeah. I wish I'd got to be in that campaign. You know, it was like, well, I mean, I don't know, because you lot were like just utterly better. We did actually get to, in the first 8 Cs, there was a time when actually Legion did go into the alternate reality, you know, where Ned Zed was, and met Ned Zed just, you know, temporarily.
Yes.
So we did get to see him, even though we weren't in that campaign. We just did get to see like a little shot of him, like a little cameo, which was kind of cool.
We'll also go back
this.
For you, Alex. We'll also go back for you. So obviously, what happened for you is your first ever character was a husk, but your second character, because you've already spoken about Dr. Satine in one of the first ever Campfire stories, but your second character, Aspen Green.
Oh yes, named because Aspen is a tree. and that's a name that a tree person I thought would have.
That's
You
fair
know,
enough.
that's the deepest lore of Aspen's name.
The
Yeah,
true
and
deepness of lore.
yeah, I think yeah, basically it's like still my number one favorite character. I was just sort of like, yeah, I mean, what else is there to say about Aspen? We've like have we talked about him quite a lot? I mean, we talked about them quite, yeah, a bit in like biology manipulation in a lot of they do, and you kind of mentioned them in passing quite a lot. Yeah, I'm not
Because
really sure what else to say, really.
well, Aspen. I guess the best thing to let people know is Aspen Green was an anomaly with the power of biology manipulation, so they could heal people, do stuff like that. And they also had nature manipulation, which allowed them to be able to forcibly grow and control plants, speak to animals, and eventually hear and understand abominations. Eventually, they got the ability of chlorokinesis, or chloromancy, which allowed them to be able to actually grow plant life from any chunk of stuff that was actually organic matter that originated from plant life. So it's like the wooden floorboards on a ship. Aspen could like make them suddenly grow branches and flowers and leaves. The only thing that they couldn't ever do was they could never control something that had been burnt or scorched or melted. Because that would be considered now just completely dead wood. However, Aspen actually, the journey that you actually took was not actually getting Aspen from one point A to point B. It was actually more like everyone thought that your character was quite interesting, quite funny, but very weak because you never actually boosted your damage up. This is actually like something that we always talk about. Where your damage was set to a D8 for both powers, and they were just not very powerful. But later on, throughout it, as the players kept saying, "Get a buff, make your damage output better, so that you can heal us more or damage people more, or so on and so forth." And obviously, you got to the end of that campaign and you didn't, but instead you put all of your abilities, you put all of your levels into abilities, which gave you every single special ability under that power. So your damage never increased, but instead you had the ability to regenerate limbs, regrow organs, heal bones and seal up any injuries. You had the ability to remove poison, ailments, burns, frostbite. You had the ability to suddenly make all of those worse, as well as make them better. You had the ability to cause biological damage, and at the end you had the ability to blood infuse special abilities, almost like enchantments, into those, like as if you're putting some kind of special power-based enchantment graft onto a person's body. At one point you gave an alternate timeline version of an arcade a bundle of different abilities for his body, so that he could then use his powers as if he was a legendary artifact. For those of you who don't know, we have a blood infusion or a blood transfusion mechanic, where blood can be placed and infused onto objects, weapons, and items, gears, armor, whatever, and it can then have special effects and abilities. They have basic effects, and then they have legendary effects, which are basically the equivalent of taking one's power and putting it onto that as an identical ability. And it can either be literally just that person's powers added on top of this item, or it can actually be a special effect. And for this one, this guy literally he just could do double the amount of power. He could do double damage. His abilities were suddenly better. His range was suddenly better. And he also asked you to give him something where basically he had a special ability where he could imbue objects with other people's powers. And he asked Aspen to give him that special ability known as Hand on Heart, meaning that if his heart ever stopped, automatically it would then restart. Once a day, he had the ability of self-revival.
I mean, that's another thing you kind of like got so like I had the ability to basically like bring people back from the dead.
Yes.
But with conditions, of course. Like they'd have to be a whole person. They had to be like, dead for only a short time. It's basically I would get them, out of the death throes. If I rolled
Their
high enough,
heart
I could
and
only do it
brain
once a
needed
day.
to be attached to the same
Hmm.
body, and they had to be undamaged.
Yeah.
However, there was a loophole where you could literally use organ donor to create a new heart, but if their head had been separated, then it looked like as if it was not going to be possible.
Yeah. I mean, but still, that's like basically I have the power over life and death.
Absolutely.
And like I almost did. That's the thing. Like, I'm afraid cover was a bit too mush for me to do it. So to get high enough rolls to reconstruct his mush body. So yeah, it wasn't possible, but I could have done that
And you also,
if I
yes, and
got
you
high
also,
enough.
as you
Yeah.
said, you also had Cover, and Cover was someone that you talked about, Sam, on another Campfire Stories. And these two characters obviously met at one point. They worked together and everything. And yeah, sadly, Aspen was not able to bring them back. And that was really quite a shame.
They didn't really work that closely together. From what I can remember about that campaign, I'm more or less splintered. I think the group splintered away from me because they realized they could get in with another person. I think.
Oh yeah, it's because Legion, well, like sort of alternative Legion who got new powers just decided to, you know, kind of revealed their hand as a time child too early, and like, just raised up the ranks really quickly, and to avoid suspicion, we went along with it. And like, it was really, yeah. I mean, that was more sort of like Legion kind of dropped the bomb on that one. But yeah, that was just times where we went off on our separate ways most of the time. But I think we did get on. We did fight alongside each other and sometimes.
I think we only fought once together.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you took my power more than anything.
Oh yeah.
Actually, yeah, that was that cool thing you did actually because you had the power of copying. And like
Yeah.
you shook everybody's hand and you would just sort of like choose their powers like, no, I don't think I'll use that power. Yeah, don't think I'll use that power. And then going to Aspen is like, ooh, biological manipulation, yes, please. And then
Indeed.
took it without anybody knowing.
I love that
Then no,
because
still no one knew what powers I had. I remember everyone was still guessing. Till I think I just
Yeah.
told you outright what I had.
in universe, very little people understood what powers you had because you used the system that we have known as proficiency system, and you had a proficiency system in a battle cape or a cape proficiency, and you actually had a
Battle
cape
cape.
that was made of like a special like metallic sort of ish Kevlar weave. So it's like when you hit them, it can actually like cut them from the edges like a giant paper cutter. And it was also like a fairly like resistant shield. So you'd like dance around the battlefield, cutting people up like as if you had like this big giant like sheet of paper on your back. But then like you then hide behind it, and it'd just be like bullet resistant. So it's like you wouldn't take that much damage or any damage if you were lucky enough. It was just so funny because
Oh,
no one knew what your powers were because you never used any other powers. You just like cape
my
proficiency, and you were just scary as hell.
he's got cape powers. Is what we all
I
call.
mean,
Actually, and even better, there was this time where you had like a perk in cape where it was just giving you advantage to intimidation, so you would just like go full
Yes.
Batman
Oh
over
yeah, I
that's
someone.
what I
forgot
mean.
about
I mean, it was called like Do the Batman.
that.
No, I
think
can't
it was-
actually. I can't remember
I-
if Do the Batman was the scary thing or the gliding one, where I could actually, if I
I
sprung
think
my
Do the
cape
Batman was
outwards
the
and
gliding
leaped,
one
I,
because you said I am cover was the name of your intimidation one.
oh yeah, because like I am the knight. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Batman.
See, this
I'm
is
cover.
another brilliant thing. It's just like the proficiency system really helped you along through that. Especially because I think when we first started off, we were like going back and forth, and you said, "Hang on a second, so I can have a proficiency in anything." Yeah, can I have a proficiency in using a cape? Go on.
Shall I tell you? If you want, I can tell you where I got that from as well.
Go on.
Well, I think it was because Linkara at one point was talking about Spawn. His cape more or less kind of acted like that. His cape could just straight out. I think it was at least in the movie, it could just become like solid objects and cut through people. But I imagine just like this cape, like kind of like Batman-y cape, could just. Yeah.
See, I always
I think it was
thought it was
supposed to be
based on
fighting games.
Batthink.
You
remember
I think there's a
Batthink?
lot of things that went into it. A lot of various sources of media got me into thinking of a cape that will attack you.
The whole using a non-weapon type object as a weapon proficiency came about from when my brother started using a scarf as a battle wrap. So he'd wrap it around people and like slam them to the ground and stuff like that, or like tie them up so that then he could just like easily wail on them or contain them. But the main thing came around from the whole thing of like, well, if I have it tight enough, then I can like sling it at someone and hit them in the face with it. Now, if it's like lead lined or if it's like weighty enough, it could be the same equivalent of being hit around the face with like a sock full of like any kind of like coins or something. And he said if I have that and I'm able to wrap it around someone and trip them up and then like later on like swing it around and smack them, I basically have a multi-use type weapon. And so that's why we were like, okay, this will work great. The other reason was because I've always wanted this and no one's made it yet, is a person who has bar stool proficiency. Because we always have those bar fights or anything. I just want one guy who just picks up a bar stool and just like starts fighting with it. And then after he's done, he just sits back on his weapon. Who else can say that they can sit on their weapon? I mean, fair enough. Campfire is the only person who has ever been able to say, I can not only wear my weapon, but I can use my weapon as a shield and also a clothing accessory that makes me also very terrifying.
You know what's really funny though, Joe, is
What?
that that my character Toxie has a foldable chair, in their
Give him
inventory.
a chair.
Yeah, I'm just saying it is in the realms of possibility. That you might get your wish one day, depending on how the dice rolls.
To be honest, what I want is the ability just to throw dwarves or something. Because remember that was a power in a game where you have the proficiency to throw smaller people as a weapon.
It's funny that you say that. So my
like
brother
dwarf
actually,
throwing, I think is the term they used, or
my brother
halfling throwing.
actually does have that ability in as one of his characters. He built it up. I think he's like got one level in it as his character Phileas Soul, which hopefully at some point I'll get him on to talk about that. But he had super strength, so that like weight was not a problem. This guy could lift up an anchor with one hand, so he would pick up people and be like, "All right, here we go, fastball special," and just literally throw them, and they'd be coming at someone so fast that no one would be able to react to it, and he just immediately like he did it with Legion, where he just throws this guy, this time weeb, and he's like as he's like flying towards them, just quick draw cuts them instantly, whilst he's like flying past someone at like 100 miles per hour or something.
Which you put one in my people throwing ability.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
it does well. He didn't do that with Nathan from the pirate campaign, where he just threw an entire bed and then he just said, "Well, that's one in the bed throwing proficiency."
In fact, he eventually built it up because he actually slammed a guy 3 times with a bed, and then later on he hit someone over the face with like some kind of like object, and he got a natural 20 with one of them, so he got like 5 points in total. And I was like, okay, well you can have it as either bed proficiency and as this proficiency, or you can have furniture proficiency. So like, I'll have furniture proficiency, so he can now beat people to death with like a bed, so long as he's strong enough, or anything else like a sofa or a chair. But he never got to use it again because he started using other powers and other people's powers.
No, that's a shame because I would like because if he got enough, he could like do loads of really cool perks with that. Like he could do combo where it's just sort of like furniture warehouse where he just picks up multiple furniture and dumps it on people.
Would you like a chair, a sofa, a coffee table, or perhaps a bird?
Everything must go!
Welcome to the fire sale! As he just starts like throwing everything, they take damage and he just lights it on fire. It's quite funny.
So it sounds less impressive once you say it like that, saying, yeah, I dumped on like a bunch of furniture and set it on fire. Now he's dead.
Speaking of over the top, we actually do go from like that, and then immediately we jump into the 8C's villain campaign. which again is set in the same world, but it's set on the open seas. And you guys all started as quite fairly low level characters. Well, not medium level characters. You all started around about like 16 levels or something, and then you start in a prison ship, and you have to break out. And you had Johnny, who was a guy who could turn into a gun. Sam, you had, if I remember right, you had, I can't remember his actual original name. Zafir, that's it, Zafir. Who was a guy who had water mimicry, so he could turn into water, and hydrokinesis, meaning that he can manipulate water. Bill
was Hydro Man, let's be honest.
Yeah. Bill had Nathan Glob. Nathan Globe, who had the ability of absorption, regeneration, and catalyst, where basically as long as he's got the blood of another person with powers, he can either he can transfuse them onto things, so he can actually forge objects and items with special abilities and powers from other power users. But he had all of the abilities in it, and he had something called animatology manipulation, which meant that he could control any piece of technology that was empowered or using animite. And as I said, absorption and regeneration, which meant that he could break down matter and absorb it as a form of energy that would then rejuvenate him. On top of that, we then had Karai, who had the same power as Bill, but it was actually called superpower manipulation, where as long as she's touching another person, she can actually forcibly use their powers, as in make those powers forcibly activate, forcibly deactivate, or she can use them through herself while still being in contact with the other person. We then had Graham, who was playing as a robotic Ronin, a cybernetic samurai, a cyber samurai known as Ronin. And we then had Alfie playing as Adrian Bright, aka the Black Flame, who was a guy who had fire mimicry, who had a unique attribute where instead of doing fire damage, he did dark damage, which was super dope, really cool, and also obviously very edgy. And obviously you played it for the sake of the comedy, for all of the edge.
It's true. I love them.
You guys eventually broke out, and then you became pirates, and you went across the world. And I think you did that campaign for about 6 to 8 weeks, maybe a little longer as well. In that time, you did some incredibly funny stuff, and you did some in really brilliant things. Your character Johnny, and obviously Sam's character Zafir didn't last long, but why don't we talk a little bit about your character Johnny?
Oh yeah. That's the thing. I don't think that he's not one of my favorite characters, but he did have a really good backstory, and he became quite more interesting as the story went along. I think it's just basically he's a weapon physiology user, and mostly just a crook. He sticks up people, and robs things. But before that he had a partner, who was also his actual partner, like his significant other, who he was very much in love with, who was a husk who had projectile manipulation. It's that's a whole other story. But basically, in a horrible traumatic event, Johnny's partner dies, and dies, while trying to protect Johnny, and that just kind of breaks Johnny, I think, emotionally and spiritually. It's that whole arc really is trying to find, just basically to get revenge on the person who ruined their life and killed their partner, but also to find their place in the world now, because they were part of a set, and now that set is eventually broken. And yeah, it was just it turned into this whole thing after a while of not being able to trust anybody, because they've been brokenhearted before, and it's that after we met these psychic pirates, they ended up getting an even worse mental ailment, which is paranoia, because he's constantly doubting everything, including the things that he sees, which led to that. So yeah, and yeah, they were definitely one of the weaker members of the ship, but then again, everybody had a relationship with Johnny eventually.
Yeah.
It was sort of yeah, and it just sort of became as indispensable in the way that Johnny, was the sailor of the group. Although it started off pretty well, they weren't that good at sailing, but they were building up a bit more.
I think
And
it shows. Sorry, I was just going to say. I
So-
think it shows that like obviously your backstory was quite like obviously rich in the terms of emotional development, because obviously it starts off at this very low point. So you've only got a place to go with that, because obviously you can have this trust issue thing. You can be cordoned off. You can still be friendly to everyone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your character is going to be as giving towards them in the terms of an emotional commitment, because obviously it's that thing of like, I'll be on your side, we can be friends, but I have to sort of have like very little emotional attachment to you, because we're in this very dangerous situation and I might see all of you die. And that kind of like was it was never stated, but
I mean, you know what the craziest thing is that happened through that, and it was purely just few coincidences, that the first bit of emotional, development with another character that Johnny had was with Saphir, and Saphir ended up betraying everybody. which,
Yeah.
which was just like, yeah, give Johnny a little bit of hope and then dash it instantly. It was constantly that. It's like giving Johnny a bit of hope and then having it dashed away like instantly, like, which made me kind of want to continue to do it. Which is like, if we ever go back to it, I do kind of want to continue to freaking do it, because it's like, come on, it's almost like, out of spite, I want Johnny to succeed, because everything has just like been, proving that, Johnny's paranoia, and I'm like, I want to be cured of this paranoia, not just in a mechanical sense, in a, legitimate character arc sense, just have something go right for Johnny.
You feel like Johnny had a lot of build up for a big old character arc, and he never actually got to either the peak of it, or he never actually got to have that final turn down and was able to finally go downhill from all the crap that he was suffering. It was just sort of like a character like line upwards, like a character incline or a character decline, and obviously you just needed that arc to go somewhere. How about you, Sam, with Zafir? Why don't you tell us a little bit about his backstory?
I mean, he didn't have a backstory, I don't think. I think the way we tried to do it was he tried to make him into like an eco-terrorist. To be quite honest, I didn't really care much for Saphir. Saphir was just character that I made at one point and then realized he has cool powers, but I have no idea who this guy is that I'm going to play.
It's so weird.
I never did get a good character for him.
Can I be a bit personal here, Sam, by the way, because I remember that we had a conversation about this during the thing after, the incident. Can I talk about the incident with Saphir?
I mean, there's many incidences we had with Saphir. You're going to have to be a bit more specific about the
incident. The very first one where, probably the biggest one you had, which was collapsing an entire temple and then killing us all. Yeah, he remembers now.
I forgot. To be honest, I didn't think that was the one you were talking about. I thought you were talking about another one. I forgot about that.
That was like the most major event. It's
so
like,
for those who don't know,
I forgot about that.
What had happened was everyone went to this underground place. This underground place was built by an ancient civilization known as the Ongoers. It has been there for almost over 2,000 years, and they went and had a look because they heard that there was treasure. Eventually, they had to go back up because some of them took a couple of injuries from a fight that had broken out. So they all went up. Now, at this time, most of them were just walking along, and Zafir, Sam, decided to destroy a large archway over the main sort of temple ground that was actually overlooking the pit that you go round and down into this spiral staircase that brings you all the way down. He collapsed it because he said, "Well, we can get in. We're all fairly powerful," and he collapses it, and the entire thing sets off a chain reaction where the entire temple suddenly caves in, and they are standing on this thing, and the ground starts just descending underneath them. Only 2 players one of which was Sam, was able to get out. The other one, which would later become the captain, was able to escape. After finding out what happened, two of them had broken legs, and one of them had a broken arm. The other one of which had a broken rib and an entirely destroyed left cybernetic arm.
Let me say why I did that, because I can remember.
I know why you did it.
I remember the reason why I did that was because I think I tuned out at some point whenever you were describing the temple. Because whenever you say temple, I didn't think it was underground. Whenever I think of temples, I assume temples like above ground, like cathedral-like temples. So I thought whenever I was removing the arch, it was just like above a door, like kind of like the doorway thing. I thought it was just going to crumble.
You're missing out a part of this, Sam. You're missing out a part of this because you kept saying like, "May I'll collapse the archway," and we were like, "Why? We don't need to, Sam." Yeah. It's like, "Yeah, but I want to collapse the archway," and I was like, "What? No, Sam. We don't need to do that. We can just come back later." And then clunk, because it's like you were just intent on doing it.
It's like I remember there was some reason. So I don't know the reason why I had to.
I'll tell you why. It's because you're an agent of chaos, Sam. That's why you did it.
So
all my male characters are agents of chaos.
After you broke the entire thing though, and nearly killed almost everyone else in the entire party other than you and Bill, I remember you saying, "Well, I didn't know that." Everyone else was like, "But we were told that this was an underground temple." I just loved it, and everyone was just like having a go or just laughing at this situation. Like, just it was. I mean, so funny.
I mean, it was funny. I mean, it wasn't lost to me just how funny it was because, like, I think Alfie was just like, just in tears, like just in not tears of. Yeah, not tears of sadness, just tears of happiness. It's like I can't believe because like we had all of these like incredible backstories, and we were just like the start of it, and the potential that Sam just killed us all in like the second episode.
Yeah. And everyone had to. I want to point this out. Everyone had to wait a week to see exactly what was going to happen. Like everyone had to wait a week to see what was going to happen.
It was agonizing.
It was
hilarious.
It was the fact that I also rolled 2 nat ones, which was my 2 broken legs. So it's Johnny's broken legs, and it was like, and of course, because you're made of water at the time, you didn't take any damage, and you could just sliver up the hill. And I was just like, thanks, thanks for running away from consequences.
He stretched himself out of the way. That's the thing. That's the thing that he did. He was in his water form, so he could just stretch his watery form out of the way. So that's how he escaped, because he just rolled SP instead of move speed. Bill, on the other hand, at the time, his legs were bunny legs, so he just hossed out of there entirely, because Bill had an ability where he could, if someone willingly gave it away, he could take the Animon radiation out of their DNA, and he can actually add it to his own in the exact same way. So he could take people's anthropomorphism, he could take people's powers, all sorts of stuff, but they had to either be dead or they had to be willingly giving them to him. The only problem was that at one point there was a moment where you guys had to go up against a fairly strong group, and it was like, yeah, these guys, we could take them on, they're all weak compared to us. And it's like, at one point someone goes, "Oh, they have an animite, like a set of animite weapons," and Bill just went, No. I will take 5 times animite damage right now. I have got so many powers in me. I will die instantly. So I'm gonna stay away from that.
It's but it's funny actually, because at the time, I think, well, I thought, at least, I don't know if anyone else would, because we didn't really know the nature of Nathan's powers. We just thought he was running away because he was a dick. And not coming to help us because he was a dick, and it was like, just come back, you coward!
Oh, no,
and it's
he ran away. He ran away from you guys because he genuinely didn't really know what he could do, so he just ran away from the entire group.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of it was just a big misunderstanding as well. Just this the first few things until his true nature of his powers were revealed, and it's that was actually a smart decision.
As for
Sam.
As for both,
I don't remember that.
As for both of your characters, we'll actually go into this because obviously you then made Arlo. Aralyn.
I did. Yes, I remember
Aralyn, shapeshifter, and then after they were killed off, you then made Red Dawn Star.
Not by the group.
Sorry. And
Alas.
do you think, I mean, subconsciously, do you think it was revenge for the time that Zafir did nearly kill the party and we just sort of like,
Maybe.
maybe? I don't know. I can't even
I mean,
remember what
like,
we thought. We were
so,
just sort of
I
panicked.
remember
to be honest, I was quite glad for Zafir because we got rid of Zafir by more or less retconning that he had a really, really terrible memory. Because he kept feeling like intelligence
his history
checks.
was like -3, and you gave him like -2 intelligence.
So we made it so he went away with, I can't remember, like one of the bad guys to become a mariachi band.
Kane,
like they stole the ship and became like a.
Kane was playing for like a couple of sessions, and on the second session, he ended up stealing the ship that you guys stole from another set of pirates, and you just went on that ship because you were like, "Yeah, I'm gonna help him steal the ship." Bye, and then that's how we had it. Like you just
I should say my character completely forgot everything that had happened. I thought that Kane was like his best friend or something because I failed a history check. So and he decided at that point he forgot his entire eco goals and set out to become a mariachi band because he could separate himself into like 4 different people. We could.
Honestly, that was the best exit, I think. Of any character, I think that's the best exit. That you just forgot about the pact and about, all of this, all of this stuff, because I think we had it like canonic. Well, the loose canon that we had is that he's basically much older than he thinks he is, but he keeps turning himself into water, and he gets like water for brains. So he can't like hold much. Like it's literally in one ear out the other because he's got no brain matter in water form, so he just forgets everything.
I think it was either that or something else where it was like something happened to it. I think actually no, I think I know what it was. I think it was like every time that he like makes clones, they split obviously like consciousness so that they can sort of relatively keep each other in mind. But anytime that one of them dies, he feels how his clones feel when they die. So it's almost like that kind of thing of like he kind of it's as a survival mechanism. He kind of has to forget. He has to keep forgetting things. So it's eventually that thing of he's actually given himself this thing of any time that there's like a big dangerous thing that happens to him, he just forgets, and his body just like creates this thing of, yeah, you're fine, you're safe.
I mean, that makes just about as much sense as anything Sophia did.
So, but obviously you then made Aaron.
Well, then I did like
you. Okay, so I introduced them quite interestingly. So you said to me that you wanted to introduce them as a cat comes on board because they were a shapeshifter.
Oh, we're talking about Arlen now.
Yes, yeah. And
I didn't realize. If I remember correctly, I wanted the character to. Like initially, I didn't even want him to be a human. Initially, I didn't because I didn't. If I remember correctly, I didn't really want to do much speaking at that point. I thought might as well just be a combat-y character. So I made a character. I initially thought of just making a character like just some character that could be made into anything, like a cat that could become like a horrifying dinosaur thing.
And yeah, maybe.
And then you turned that down, so I thought, well, I'll just make him. I don't know, make a character then that's a rich boy.
We didn't exactly have a way to make this system for non-human creatures at the time. We do now, so technically if you re-pitched that to me now, obviously I'll be able to say yes. But yes, back at the time I was like, that seems like a lot of work. Now it's like, we actually have something for that.
Especially that I didn't think that Captain Marvel came out at that point, but now we have an analog for that with the little kitty that is a horrifying eldritch monster inside of it.
Yeah.
As for their eventual demise, I know exactly how this happened, and I'm going to say it now. So, Arlen was also a cheeky little guy who ran away from home from this very rich family. He had quite a big bounty on his head, but since he was a shapeshifter, he could always get away with looking like someone else. Arlen, however, really liked diving into the world of hedonism, drinking, sex, and gambling, and so he went off and did so. he joined up with the pirates, and the captain said, "You are not to go out tonight." And he said, "Oh, yes, I am. I'm going out." And he goes, "Fine, but don't complain to me when something happens." And of course, we had to sort of pretty much like everyone else wanted to skip that night because they weren't actually being a part of it because they all wanted to in-game go to sleep, and that's what they wanted to do. So I just rolled a severity check for the night that was ahead of Aralyn. Lo and behold, it went very badly. I got a very, very bad roll, and Aralyn woke up chained to a bed, and he thought, "Oh, okay, this isn't too bad," in another pirate's ship. Because he had been captured and he was outside of his transformation, meaning that they recognised him from the posters, and obviously they captured him and they were going to take him back. After that, and after the others woke up and sort of realised that he wasn't there, they needed to do something about this, and eventually they got the information that he had been captured by another pirate lord. So they went off to go and save him. Aralyn eventually finally escaped.
I should say. I should say. Let me say in my defense.
I will allow this, but if your defense is too long, I will continue.
Well, I should say I was captured, but I thought I knew I could get out of there because I had great charisma. So all I had to do did work.
No.
Because I managed to seduce the guard, more or less. And,
yes, but you didn't seduce the rest of the crew, who then attacked you.
Well, I seduced the guard, and all I had to do then was get out of there, because I could become any object. I could fly away. Or something else.
You didn't fly far enough, did you? Because as you escaped...
Well, I should say...
As you got attacked, you were then unable to really do much else other than try and turn into a bird and fly away. As you did so, you were pursued by the pirates. The rest of the crew eventually caught up to the pirate ship and were trying to help you. However, you were then caught by the Captain Shikingu himself, who would not let you go. They needed to figure out a way to stop him, and I will give this to you. It was something that actually did happen, which was hilarious, which was the others decided to take out one of the barrels of gunpowder that they had stored up and throw it over the front. When they did so, they then attempted to ignite it, but only when Aralyn had been able to escape. However, Aralyn then got grabbed and was unable to escape, and they realised that they had to make a decision. So, Black Flame, in his usual cockiness, jumped over the surface of the water, not into the water, and used his black fire mimicry to basically hover across the surface of the water. He then attempted to shoot the barrel, and he missed. He completely failed. At that point, Karai tried to do the same, as she had stored up a small fragment... I say a small fragment. I actually stored up a copy of Black Flame's powers into her special dagger and fired a black flame shot off at the barrel itself, exploding and destroying all of Shikingu's arm, with Aralyn inside of it, killing Aralyn, and then finally damaging and knocking out Adrian Bright. However, it did not defeat Shikingu as he came aboard the ship and was instantly taken down by Nathan as he had an animite-tipped what's it called? Knuckle Duster, and he used some of the super strength that he was able to take from another creature. Sadly, Aralyn was entirely turned into paste, and we never really got to see the end of his arc. Albeit everyone did say, yes, that wasn't your fault that you got blown up. But everyone did all unanimously state that it was your fault that you got captured.
And I said I could have gone out of it without your assistance, so I could have. I
mean, you did get captured again. You got grabbed by...
Momentarily! I got grabbed. I could become any object at that point. I could have become 3 people on this
You're saying here now, trying to find bite me if he did, it was going to come something inside of his stomach. Like, you do realise he will chew you, right?
Another thing is that, like, Sam, you say that you could have, but you didn't, and you can't.
I know, because I got exploded! I exploded
Get
before
the
I
salt!
could.
The salt is real. Like,
The salt is real.
you're
Because
saltier
you're
than the
saying
sea.
as if I did this, I
So,
could have escaped, but then
my
I got
question to you-
exploded.
Both is my question to you
People
both
didn't
is
know
obviously
this.
with everything that's going on, because obviously this has now been an hour and we've still got quite a lot of
Oh,
different characters and stuff to go through, so obviously we'll leave it here, but we won't end the episode yet, because I'm actually going to talk to you both about stuff that has now changed in the game that would have potentially changed outcomes and stuff. For instance, a husk who has projectile manipulation, obviously we don't have the allowance of that because they obviously have their own powers. And obviously, it was a thing to do with like a whole.
That was
like,
another story
experiment.
arc. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, we've now changed that. So obviously, if we were ever to come back to it, it'd probably more than likely be some other thing that they could do that would allow them to be quite lethal with a weapon. Probably either super dexterity or maybe some kind of life drain like power, or maybe sonic screech or something. Maybe just the ability where they can use life drain, and because you guys could resonate together, anytime that anyone got shot by that bullet, the life drain would then come back to her, regardless of the fact that she needs to be touching them. Because
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Yeah.
and like sort of the wall phasing ability, so that she could pass through things, slip in and out of different locations. So that, like, to keep with the whole theme of your guys barely ever tried to kill people, you guys were crooks and thieves, not really killers and murderers. And then also maybe perhaps having some kind of like either super wisdom or super intelligence ability where she could obviously keep thinking of the next thing. Either that or the idea of like some kind of like I think that's a special ability. So perhaps make it maybe some kind of like other special ability. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head.
I think it could be super wisdom, I think, because I definitely think that she was the brains of the outfit, like in that partnership. So, and I think that, one of the things that I had to learn in the game as well was like getting my perception powers, up, because I was also like, I was the sailor. I had to like see with my things. So we had this blood transfused sort of blindfold that would use my sights as my perception. So that would like change the roles around a way. And I think that, she would, I would never have to do that before because I never had to do that before. But I think that my partner would be doing that. So that could be a way around that.
Yes.
But yeah.
As for Aspen though, obviously a few bits and pieces have changed, but not too much has actually changed too much since the last time that you played as them, because you played as them in the 19-hour session that we did. And yeah, that was a tricky one. But the funny thing is that I'd actually say that like a question for you is, if you got the opportunity to do a new campaign either for the dev plays or for something else, and obviously you were allowed to either make a new character or play as an old one, would you choose to play as an old one, and would it be one of the ones that you've played before, that including Aspen?
Well, that's the thing. I do love playing Aspen, but I do like creating new characters. It's part of my new thing, and I've got so many ideas for new characters, so I'd have to choose the new characters, to be honest. which is weird because like if I had to play old characters, again, it's gonna be Aspen probably, or maybe Aoife, because I think that Aoife had a lot of potential that didn't quite come to fruition, and I do love my archer characters.
Aoife being the
So
elven character that you played in the Animite Fables.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So that would have been fun. But like, yeah, I like to create new characters wherever I can and try out new powers. And I feel like Aspen's arc. I wouldn't mind finishing off, the 24-hour campaign. Just because I feel that sort of finishes Aspen's arc. I think in my mind at least.
Yes,
But yeah. So I'd always play as a new character that I could like, start from scratch and like do again. I'm a typical sort of builder, like I when I pile up blocks and then I knock them down again to pile up another pile of blocks,
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
No, that definitely makes sense.
A well-known builder technique.
As for you, Sam, I'd say that obviously, like, a lot of the things that have changed over the times are obviously, like, I don't think there's anything that would necessarily save either of those two characters. considering that like obviously the first one is more you just got rid of that character because you were really not all that interested. The other thing that I'd say is obviously when you were playing as Aralyn, there were a lot of different things that you could obviously turn into, and obviously now we've altered the way that like the last couple of abilities work at level 10 on both of those. So it had Aralyn been able to get to those levels, you know, they would have been able to have some incredible abilities. But was there anything in particular that like you would have loved to have like revisit with any of those characters, like Aralyn or Cover or Zinzarina or even Zephyr, Hydro Man?
Really? Their stories. Admittedly, I would prefer Ireland just kind of didn't die, but at this moment, I honestly can't remember much about what he was like beyond his gambling and the one time he made himself look like a woman to get more money from a pirate lord. I remember that happening.
I mean, that's the thing, because it's like he was very much like a gag character. He was very much like he was the bard of the group, really, because he would literally just de-escalate fights as well. There was this moment where you're exiting from a prison, right? Like someone seems to have recognized you and is trying to blackmail you, and you're just sort of like, okay, here's some money, and they're like, oh, thank you. May I ask one question? You just flip them another coin and just walk away.
Yes. Oh my gosh, how did I forget that? Yeah. Can I ask you another
cool.
Forgot about that.
Here's a coin. Bye.
Yeah, it's like, don't ask any questions. Here's a tip: stay in school. That kind of like cool. Like I don't need. You don't have to blackmail me. I've got enough money. Get out of my face. But in the most charming, and funny way. And that was like what Aralyn was, but it's like, he was like a candle in the wind, and we blew him out.
Yeah, and I remember the third character I played, which we'll probably talk about sometime. I don't want to play him again. I can't be arsed. I didn't play after Aralyn died. I kind of lost interest in that campaign. At least my characters in it.
Oh man, did we break you, Sam? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just that campaign. I'm happy with other campaigns. I'm happy with my.
It's quite a shame because everyone else absolutely lost that campaign, which is one of the reasons why, like, if I ever get the chance to do it again, it will probably be in the replacement of the war if I can get Alfie back for it. But obviously, for the dev plays, we've got a lot of different ones, and perhaps we'll actually be talking about the actual characters in the dev plays in the next episode, or we'll actually be talking about another couple of ones because we still have yet to talk about your Collidia characters.
Oh yeah,
as well as
in that campaign.
Yes,
yeah,
you played as Presto, the fake magician.
Oh yeah.
No, yeah.
Told you before we started this. My memory of everything that I've done is very bad.
You are Sophia, like you really are. You've just cloned yourself too many times, and it fades away.
I tend to forget. I've forgotten major life events. How am I supposed to remember my characters I've played?
I think you might need to see a doctor, Sam.
Fair enough, I guess. Although, yeah, that is a little worrying how easily you forget things. But, I mean, I'm sure
I just filled with banal knowledge of pointless facts.
Well, either way, did you guys enjoy this different layout of the sort of podcast-ish sort of style?
I did. If just to sort of like send Sam into like, a sort of into a salty spiral, because it's like, yeah. I mean, I don't mean to open up old wounds, but this is still like, really funny stuff that would only ever happen in our group.
Absolutely.
To hear me scream and shout.
It is. You just constantly. It's like, excuse me, no, sir, Your Honor.
Wrong.
If I may, sir, you are absolutely wrong in this situation.
Officer, I can explain.
Explain like an officer. I'd actually have to say,
and a gentleman.
The reason that I liked this new structure is because we can actually just talk about the stuff freely and actually have a discussion. But obviously, this does not mean that the original Power Podcast is going away. We still have a couple more episodes on that before we officially run out of ideas.
Oh no, I got plenty of ideas. I mean, they're all bad ideas, but they're good.
Plenty of powers to talk about. But obviously, we'll see how people like this one, because obviously, if after we've talked about all of the previous campaigns that we've done, I'd actually really like to go back to this, where we actually talk about like character creation and stuff. There's a ton of stuff that we can talk about, like our usual sort of like way as to how we build it. You know, like sort of like our own set of sort of rules that we have when we're building our own characters. Talking about exactly like what sort of like inspires us. But even if not, actually talking about like the things that interest us for character designs, like, or even talking about the different types of characters that we wish that we could play more often in campaigns. I mean, I know that I have quite a lot of stuff that I really wish that I could play, being the forever DM to this game. But at the same time, like, we could talk about the different races that we've spoken about, and the different types of powers that we've been able to use, different archetypes. For instance, like Sam almost always playing as the chaotic, strange one, but then playing as Vale.
Only when I play man.
Well, no, because Vale wasn't chaotic or strange. He was strange, but he wasn't chaotic, and he definitely wasn't erratically dangerous towards anyone else. He was, in fact, a leader-like figure, and he did a lot of things. The only thing that you did that was chaotically stupid was putting a portal in the middle of a black hole, and you were attached to that portal.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I'll tell you
I'm
what.
not going into this argument.
I'll tell you
Fair
what.
enough.
Sam's. I've said this before, and I'll say this again. Sam has 3 archetypes that I've noticed. One, it's the chaotic stupid. 2, Batman. And 3, the super simp. Which is like, and I'm not kidding. He's played all 3 of these things. Thank you. I rest my case, Your Honor. We can go into this in another thing, but I've noticed this.
The 3
the
stages of Sam.
The 3 stages of Sam.
Well, thank you very much for everyone for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this different type of campfire stories, and at some point I will definitely be trying to get more guests on. I've been trying to speak to different people, and I heard maybe a couple of people are interested. I won't say who they are in case if I can't get them on, but I'm hoping for some good old guests. I'm also really trying to get my brother on here at some point so that we can actually talk about his character. Because he has Phileas and he has Nathan, and he currently has obviously Talos. So I would like to speak at least about one of those. But if not, I as I said, I've still got other guests. But yeah, we'll do these staggered out between the Power podcasts, just so that then some episodes we can talk about powers and our opinions on them, and other ones we can talk about like the crazy stuff that happens on in our sort of like sessions, both in front of the camera and also behind the scenes. Just a little peek behind the veil. Anyway, thank you very much. Take care, everyone, and have a decent night amongst this campfire.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.